In this moment, yes, I cannot say what's wrong or right. No, it's not hard to fool me. No, 'cause I'm addicted to the good life. Yes. Yeah, either way, I follow. No need to say where we are heading now, babe. I follow to the edge of it all, to the edge of it all. So tell your good night, 'cause I'll find no better one. Yeah, susceptible now before the moment flies. Ooh, so tell your good night, 'cause I'll find a better one. Ooh, susceptible now before the moment flies. It's not a problem, no, 'cause I know what I'm getting into. Yes. Yeah, and nothing can stop me. No, 'cause I'm addicted to with you and I.
What's up, guys? This is Rob, and I got them thighs.
Hey, this is Murph. And real men definitely cry.
That's right. What's up, guys? It's Shay, and I'm the girl. I got to keep these boys in line, and it's a job. Welcome to the waiting table, or shall we continue with winning table? I like that. I like
I like
doing
winning
it that way.
table. I'll
not
take
bad.
winning table.
That's not
That's
bad.
not bad at all. I always feel weird about being like, I got them thighs. But hey, that's what's going right now. So yeah, might as well
Own it.
We got to promote our merch, you know?
That's it. I'll take it. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Waiting Table Podcast, where we have roundtable discussions about the hottest topics in weight loss with, of course, the coolest people from the bariatric community. I'm Rob. This is Murph. We got Shay. And of course, we got you guys. So grab a chair, wind down from your busy day, and take a seat at the table. Murph, I see you're playing around with all the other stuff. How's it going today, man?
I'm just tearing down, but it's going great. Worked a 12-hour shift after being sick for a week, and I'm just getting back into the swing of things, and I missed you guys, and I'm excited about tonight's show, and I never know what to say when you ask me how it's going, and I just start to ramble.
You did great. You did
But
a
I'm
great
here.
job.
And I'm happy to be here.
Good.
Shay, what's up?
Not a whole lot. I'm so excited for our guest. Can I just jump in and just introduce her already?
Do
Because
it.
I want to get her in. So tonight we have the amazing Lora Grabow, and she is a bariatric therapist, a coach, and a professional speaker with over 20 years of experience. And I first got to hear Lora at actually the Catalyst event in January. I don't know if anybody else went to that, but when she was speaking, I'm glad I wasn't on camera because I was just like this the whole time, just taking it all in. So this is your opportunity before we bring her in. You guys are going to want to be engaged this whole time because she's just an amazing human being. So with that, welcome, Lora. We're so excited to have you.
Hello, you guys.
Hey!
Really, it's the winning table. Congratulations. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. We are excited to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
So, Shay, that was a great intro. This is an episode we definitely want to just jump into. And this is perfect timing for it. We've been having a lot of discussions in regards to mental health, especially with it being World Mental Health Day yesterday, and us having those discussions. And, obviously it's top of mind for a lot of us in the bariatric community. But before we get into all of that good, juicy stuff that we're going to be talking about today, can you tell us a bit about yourself, your whole journey with everything, as well as how you've been involved or how you got involved with the bariatric community.
Sure. So, yes, my name is Lora Grabow. I'm coming to you from my home in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I thought about driving back to the office. I'm like, no, it's kind of late. I'm just going to stay home. We're cash.
We're very casual here.
Yes. So, I, believe it or not, started working with the bariatric community 20 years ago. Never thought that's what I would do as a therapist. I always thought I'd work with adolescent psych, which I did. I worked with adolescent girls until I had my own girls and wanted to just switch up my schedule a little bit. I did a lot of trauma work. I'm a certified EMDR therapist. And I just needed to do something different. And so I had a friend call me up and he said, hey, we need somebody to do groups for a medical and surgical weight loss program. Are you interested? And I was like, I don't know anything about medical and surgical weight loss. And he said, I know, but you know how to do groups. And I said, well, I'm like, all right, I'll try. And then I fell in love with the patient community. I was like, here I am working with adults who want to be here and want to talk, like so much different than the teenage girls who I will always have a special place in my heart. So that's where it kind of kicked it off. I worked in a bariatric center here in Grand Rapids, Michigan that has it's private practice, 5 bariatric surgeons. There were 4 of me, so strong behavioral health, which I'll get to in a minute. I thought everybody had that, which they don't. 2 exercise physiologists, 3 dietitians, 3 obesity medicine docs. I mean, this is back in 2003, right? So they were on top of it and did everything from the pre-op psych evals to support groups to behavioral education. And then I started speaking for providers, getting involved in ASMBS. I continue to be involved in that. And so I also had private practice where I did therapy on the side, if you will, with bariatric patients. And then, COVID happened and everything, like it shook us all up and we're like, whoa, we can kind of do things differently. And I'm working at home anyways. And so made the decision to go completely on my own. So I'm completely in private practice now and continue just right down the road from the surgical center. There was no hard feelings or anything like that. So I see about 12 to 15 individual therapy clients a week, most of them bariatric surgery patients, lead support groups, virtual support groups in the Bari Nation community, and continue to do public speaking. I'll be speaking at bariatric retreat, continue to be involved in ASMBS. And I created and launched an online course. So felt really passionate about doing that as well and getting more headwork skills out. So I think that sums it up. And it's hard to believe it's been 20 years. It is hard to believe.
So everything. Yeah. You just do it all.
It sounded like a lot. I'm like, oh my gosh.
But that's awesome. Like, that's awesome to hear how, I absolutely love the part where you had mentioned, working with specific people and a community that wants to talk. Because I think you look at our demographic about, the group of people that we have in this community, and we want to talk. We want to understand what it is. We want to understand our challenges because we've already taken these steps to try to get, better or healthy. But unfortunately, there are areas that we don't address. And that's just sort of the way the system has been set up, right?
Right. And so I'm super passionate about what I call head work. And I often say it's the missing piece. And it's the missing piece of the bariatric treatment plan. And what's hard for me is I've been 20 years and I'm still saying it's missing, right? And so that's what launched me into wanting to reach more people. And that's why I'm so excited and honored that you have brought me to the waiting table and I get to meet your whole audience now and bring headwork skills to those who are on tonight, because it's still missing. Our patients get so much information about their surgical tool, so much information about movement, so much information about nutrition. I don't know, guys. You tell me. You're the experts, the patients, but I would say 90% of it's up here.
100%. And we've always said that, right? Yeah. And exactly what you said. And you used the amazing analogy of baseball and the whole idea that, you go to play baseball and you're given specific tools, you're given a bat, you're given a glove, and similarly we're given the information we require in regards to exercise and diet, but you're not given the actual ball, the thing you actually need to make everything go. And that's exactly what tends to be missing from our journey. I know I've said this in Canada a long time, that this was not addressed early on, and you could see that it's so apparent. And I think it's the same in the States in regards to that.
Absolutely. And yes, I do use that analogy, and I use it, one, to show that no one could play baseball without a ball, but also to my patients, I want to say it's not your fault, right? It's not your fault. I love it. So cute. It's not your fault that you haven't been able to lose weight and keep it off. One, you didn't understand that your obesity was a disease and not a decision. And you were using all the wrong treatment tools to treat that disease. So yay for bariatric surgery, the best treatment tool. But right there, it's a tool, it's not a cure. And if you don't get all the equipment, you're not going to have success. All the treatment strategies, if you will, the treatment protocols, the treatment interventions, you're not going to have success to treat your chronic disease. And so we need to get more head work out there.
That's amazing. I mean, like, we could stop the show right there, and I think that all just like sums it up. Like, it's so that's exactly what we need to hear. I mean, the fact that obesity is a disease, can we, acknowledge that for starters? Like, I feel like that it's so under talked about. And then where does that disease come from, and what do we do with that disease? And a lot of us turn to an addiction like food or alcohol. I mean, there's lots of different, types of addiction, but we're all here because it was food. It was food for me, for sure. Secondly, I want to address the fact that you are in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I am right here in Lansing,
Yes,
Michigan.
I knew that.
We're neighbors. We're
get
practically neighbors. You should just be right here, and we could be, maybe next time.
Good. I will come see you because your studio is way cooler.
Love Michiganders.
I can have that big microphone and stuff. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, you could have it.
I'd feel really important.
But yeah, thank you for being here. And that's just, like I said, we could just end the show right there. I think just talking about, Cat, get off the table. Sorry. Just talking about how, obesity is a disease. I've been waiting 40 years to hear that, and like to feel validated in that. Like, I wasn't just battling, I don't know how to explain it. Like,
you just didn't need to eat less and move more?
Right. Yeah, it's
right.
It's just crazy. It's just
right. So we have a way to go with that too, right? So American Medical Association recognized it as a chronic medical disease in 2013. Here we are 10 years later. Our medical students in med school still aren't getting enough education on it, and let alone general practitioners who have been out there a while, and then of course society. And we knew it was a disease. I was working since 2003. I'm like, there's a lot going on here that we don't understand. And what I often say to my patients is, if it was just as easy as eat less and exercise more, move more, we wouldn't have an obesity epidemic, right? Like, just the physical comorbidities that go along with the disease of obesity, nobody wants those. Diabetes, cardiovascular risk, 11 types of cancer, like, no one wants those. But I hear about the emotional pain that goes along with the disease of obesity. And the shame that is internalized. And if it was just as easy as eat less and move more, our patients would do it, right? Because who wants to have the disease of obesity? It's really, really complex. And now we're treating it like, we're maybe making the turn in obesity medicine, but what I'm seeing is we're not giving our patients enough, what I call head work. You can call it mindset. Certainly you're getting it before in the pre-op psych eval, but again, that's just a clearance. It's important, but what I've learned in my 20 years, the interventions that I help patients, right? So just like I think protein is important for your treatment, getting your movement is important in your treatment, you got to work on your emotional relationship with food. That's part of your treatment, right? And what I've learned is my patients are more receptive of that or understand that post-surgery than pre-surgery.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And so, you had mentioned that. Do you find that that is the biggest challenge in regards to sort of reframing the way that we think in terms of that? Or because there's a lot of different things, right? Whether it's managing or dealing with the trauma that we had previously, whether it's looking at the way that our perspective is, and obviously everything is tied together. But do you find that the biggest challenge that you see with the bariatric community is more understanding why I eat or what my relationship is with food?
Yeah, so that was really my challenge when I sat down and wanted to create a headwork course, my online course, because I thought, okay, what are the basic headwork skills that I would want every bariatric patient to have? What have I learned from my patients? What have I learned from my practice? And I think it can be summed up in this sentence: every behavior is driven by a thought and an emotion, right? So every behavior is driven by a thought and emotion. And if we want, right? And if we want to change our thoughts, if we want to change our behaviors, we have to understand what's going on up here with our thoughts and with, we feel our feelings up here, but I often point to our heart, our feelings. So foundational, I think, is every time is our thoughts. We need to understand what is the thought behind when we grab that food, right? Every behavior. Okay. Every time we eat, we have a thought. And again, it's not your fault that you don't know this. So many of my patients are like, I don't know, I don't think I had a thought. Like, I was just eating the donuts in the break room, or I don't know, my car was in the drive-through. I don't know how it got there. I don't think I had a thought, because no one ever taught you to slow down and say, what's going on up here? So a big part of my work is helping clients, what I call catch it, check it, change it. That's a CBT phrase, cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm very trained in that modality. So kind of catching this, I call it stinking thinking, sabotaging thought, catching it, checking it, and changing it. So that first headwork skill I teach is the foundational is kind of, okay, what do our thoughts have to do with our behavior and my relationship with food? And then obviously a big part is emotional eating. That's another part. So what do our thoughts have to do with why do we eat? Emotional eating is the number one reason anyone, bariatric surgery patient or non-bariatric surgery patient, will gain weight or regain lost weight. So I'm probably talking about emotional eating in every podcast that I'm on and every support group that I'm leading. It's important. So understanding that emotional relationship with food, which I'm more than willing to go in a little bit more today if you want me to. And then I realized another skill that fell under headwork was this whole idea of boundaries. You might think, well, yeah, of course I have to make new boundaries with food post bariatric surgery. But what I've learned from my patients, and I think it's important for me to say that, I learn the most from my patients. You are the experts. And what I've learned from them is they're yes people. They are like the yes to everyone people. They do everything for everyone. They're go, 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 do. So I do a lot of headwork teaching, if you will, on could your yes be sabotaging your weight loss? Right? And how do you start saying no to others and yes to yourself? Because you now have a chronic disease you need to manage the rest of your life. And so we talked about thinking, your thoughts about food, your emotional relationship with food, learning to set healthy boundaries. And then the other foundational skill I talk a lot about is building and using a support team. What's happening right here, using community. Patients need other patients, just like I think it is just as important, or if not more important. It's equal with protein. Now, you need other patients. That has to be part of your treatment plan. But you also need other people too. And so I teach a lot on relationships and who should be on your team and who shouldn't be on your team, because people show up that you didn't invite. And how do I deal with them? How do I interact with food pushers? How do I interact with food police? That's going to be a big one coming up with the holidays. And then of course, there's other things, relationships change after bariatric surgery that you didn't expect. So those are the foundational headwork skills. I think there's a lot more, but maybe another.
I love that. Sorry, Rob. Is it okay?
No,
if
go
I
ahead.
jump
Go
in?
ahead. Yeah.
Just with what you're saying, I've learned. So I'm 19, almost 19 months post-op, and it's been a really interesting process of learning how I was so disconnected from my physical body. Like I call myself, I was just like a floating head. And then when I had surgery, it was like, whoa, a lot of connection with my body that I didn't necessarily want, or I wasn't expecting or anticipating having that kind of, you know, whoa, I'm in my body now for the first time in years. And it's been kind of an overwhelming process in some ways, but also it's been cool to see the correlation between working through mental and emotional barriers and having different breakthroughs with that. And I've seen, like, just with my own body, a direct correlation with my physical body. So what I mean by that is, yes, I had the sleeves, so that's like my physical tool to help me lose weight, but I would have periods where I would stall out physically. Not even kidding. I would have some type of like mental or emotional breakthrough. The next day, my weight would drop, like, physically. And
Wow.
so I'm just curious, like, if you could shed more light on more of that, like, mind body connection. Is that something you see with other patients? Because that's been something I have been very surprised by.
I think that's maybe in 20 years the first time I heard it put so succinctly like that, that you notice that type of correlation, that you hit a stall, and then after you work through an emotional part of your journey, you felt like your scale started moving again. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I guess I would want to know what the behaviors and stressors, like what was going on in your life around the stall.
I mean, there are lots of different things, and you've, like, mentioned all of them with, like, I think the biggest thing was realizing toxic relationship dynamics. And I like how you put it, of like, I say it like, who's in part of my inner circle and who's not, but who's on my team, who's not on my team. And so that was one of the hardest parts of realizing, oh, people that I was hoping would be on my team, or who I thought were on my team, aren't actually on my team, and kind of working through the process of that. So that's kind of like an overarching kind of thing. I don't know if that answers that, but just, I think working through some of those toxic relational dynamics was a big piece of my journey for sure.
Yeah, it was actually, I see that you guys all have your cool Instagram handles underneath. I forgot to put mine on at bariatric.therapist. That was actually my post today. It was about relationship changes. People we thought would be our biggest supporters were not our biggest supporters. And so Shay, and again, this is a question I've never had before, so I'm just hypothesizing. You probably were able to work on feeling your feelings about that, and then also set some healthy boundaries to get the people off who were not helpful, and surrounded yourself with people that you did need. So then you put in that tool of community, and then that's not surprising that your scale started moving again.
Yeah. And I think I'm making the connection too of, like, it was the first time of really actually learning how to express emotions. And we joke about that on here, where it's like me and Murph, between the two of us, one of us usually cries on every episode. But learning to do that and feeling safe enough to do that, it's like, as that emotional and mental release has been happening, that's when I saw that physical weight releasing as well. So I don't know, just interesting. That's something I was not expecting.
Right. Yeah. And Shay, I'm so glad you're touching on. So back to that emotional eating piece, I said all of us have an emotional relationship with food. But again, what I've learned from my patients is many of my patients have no idea how to feel their feelings. Or they identified emotional work as physical hunger. And I, again, learning from my patients, sometimes, I'd start working with them like, okay, so here's some tools to feel your feelings without food. And then they'd come back to my office like, okay, journal about your feelings. And then they'd come back and the pages would be blank. And so I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I had to like back up. Like, my patients don't even have a feeling vocabulary, right? So we had to like name them. And then how do I be present with them? How do I how do I express them in non-food ways? Are you sure feeling a feeling's not an emergency? Because I'm really uncomfortable with this. This is really hard. It was just easier to eat it. And there's a lot of work around that, around what I call affect regulation and learning how to cope. And what I get excited about is, I have patients who believe, I have a patient who had his surgery when he was 70, right? Like that you can learn these skills, these feeling skills, if you will, at any time. It's never too late. But that's a rough one for our patients because it's not expected. It goes back to the ball wasn't given. And I often say this is, when I went to school to be trained as a therapist, therapy 101 is you never take a client's unhealthy coping skill until they're ready, till they realize it's not working for them, right? This isn't working for me. I want to do something different. So they have to realize it's unhealthy. And then you talk about, well, what else could you try? What needs are you trying to get met with this coping skill? And then you talk about some, and then they go and practice, and then they come back, and that worked, it didn't work, and then sometimes there's some backslide. It's a whole process. That doesn't happen with bariatric surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Your emotional relationship with food is severed in the operating room. That coping skill is taken away immediately.
Yep.
And that's hard. And you guys can probably speak to it. And my patients, they're like, I'm feeling all these feelings and I don't know what is going on.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever thought about it that way. Obviously we go into, well, I know I went into the surgery being like, this is going to instantly give me that physical boundary of how much I can eat, right? I will not allow myself to do that because physically I can't do that. I never thought about how this surgery had severed my ability to utilize food to cope with different things. And I think that is so profound in the way that a lot of us struggle post-op with that exact part, the feelings, the emotion part, the connection of everything, because I do think that everything, and it's funny because as you were listing all the things and that's the foundational part of your program, I'm watching the chat and it's going crazy because everyone's just like, oh yeah, me too. Oh, this is this, and it resonates with everyone because we've all felt these things because they are threads that I think are commonalities with us. And I know, just by reading everything, the one that really touched upon a lot of people is the whole people pleaser thing, being able to say no to people because we're always saying yes and we're always saying yes. And I think that sometimes that's possibly why I know with me, there were some challenges with me utilizing my emotions or connecting with my emotions because I gave it all to other people all the time. It was always other people. And I didn't keep it for myself. And I think emotionally, I was a big wreck for so long because I prioritized other people. And yeah, food was an easy way to feel good. And it was an easy way to be happy. And it had so many different connections socially with me as well as emotionally. It tied back to my childhood when things might have been at a happier or an easier or better time. And so having that cut off right at surgery is a big challenge for a lot of people. I never really thought about that way.
Yes, it's a huge challenge, and I totally support. Our patients need bariatric surgery. There are physical health problems that need to be treated and or prevented. But again, why don't we have every bariatric surgery patient working with a bariatric therapist or a therapist? I don't even think you need a bariatric
100%.
therapist, right? So, it's tough, and you are exactly right about people resonating with, like, I'm the yes person. I'll often say my patients' no muscles. I'm like, I feel like they've kind of become paralyzed and we have to get them working again. And you all took that first step to say yes to yourself when you said, I'm going to have bariatric surgery, right? But when you're everything to everyone and you're pouring out and you're pouring out and you're pouring out, you still have emotional needs inside of you that are saying, take care of me, take care of me, take care of me. but you are so exhausted and you have nothing left that the easiest way to take care of it is some emotional eating at night.
100%.
And it's not salad, right? It's going to be sugar, fat, and salt because it gives you the dopamine that you want, and it does soothe.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I always say, like, I have these like little Laura-isms through the years, and one of them is your feelings are worth so much more than French fries. Right.
Yeah.
I think if our feelings could talk, they would say, kind of like that Disney movie Inside Out, like, please stop feeding me. I'm not hungry. Right. And so it's great that you're crying. I'll always say, never apologize for crying in a Lora Grabow group. I'll say that again. Never apologize for crying on a Lora Grabow podcast. Like, you're feeling your feelings. And I think our feelings would say, thank you, because I wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
That's so good.
And one of the things I've learned just with crying and expressing emotions, your body has to feel safe enough. And I think for many of us, we just didn't have environments where it was safe to do that. We would get, told like, why are you crying? There'd be a lot of shame associated with that. We'd get backlash. And so it's like, of course, our bodies have held all of the tears for so long because when many of us would express emotions before, it would be this intense reaction either from our parents or society, people around us, whatever. And I think, bringing it back to community, that's why it's so important to pick those people where it's like, okay, I know with these guys, my body feels safe to be myself and to express my emotions. I have other people in my life where they're safe people to do that, but not everybody is a safe person. I don't let I do have a lot of people. I let a lot of people see my tears because I just express emotions that way. But you're lucky if you're in my group and you get to see me express emotions because that means that my body feels safe. And so any like suggestions on that, Laura? Because I know sometimes people are genuinely like wanting to learn how to express emotions or, wanting to cry or feel safe enough to do that. Any tips on like how to feel safe or get to a place that's safe enough to do that or to start that or start trying that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to jump over the trauma history many of our patients come with. We know that it's well documented. Again, the literature tells me, but I learned the most from my patients, that many of our patients have what we call adverse childhood events. I know you had Dr. Stapleton on. I listened to that one in preparation for tonight, and she touched on that too. And oftentimes, so look at, right? So here we took your coping skill away. Maybe you have some unresolved trauma issues. You usually cope with food. You can't do it anymore. So you're walking around triggered. So if you have a trauma history, first of all, I think every bariatric patient should be in therapy. I think everyone should be in therapy. I'll be honest. Every bariatric patient should be in therapy. I'm in therapy because I believe in what I do. Every good therapist is in therapy. Every member of my family has a therapist, both my daughters, my husband. We just believe in what we do. So if you're struggling with trauma, a modality I recommend, I don't do it anymore, but I'm trained in it, is EMDR therapy. You can just go to emdr.com. It's a excellent therapy for those who have trauma in their background. The first book I read on EMDR, I think it's out of print, was called Emotional Healing at Warp Speed. And it really can work that quickly. It's a powerful modality.
Can you, for anyone who doesn't know what EMDR, can you sort of explain that a bit more?
So EMDR therapy, it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So do you guys know what it is? I see you guys going like this, or maybe you know a little bit. So EMDR, what we know is when people go through trauma, the image. So when we go, let me back up. So when we go to bed at night, we do this thing called REM sleep, which is bilateral stimulation of the brain. And and that's how it files. So hopefully this podcast isn't too traumatic for anybody. We're going to go to bed and it's going to get filed wherever you need to have it filed. But what happens with people who go through trauma, it gets stuck, right? So the image gets stuck. If it could happen 20 years ago and you could tell me exactly, what you were wearing, what song it was, what smells were in the air, like, what the weather, what the day was. Like, it's a trauma, it's stuck, it hasn't been processed. And when you experience a trigger, your mind thinks you're back there. And so what we also know in trauma is where we feel our feeling. I don't know if I'm getting too scientific, but I'll keep going.
No,
Please keep going.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
We feel our feelings in the back of our brain in this wonderful part called our amygdala. And then up here is our frontal cortex, which tells us, what to do with those feelings. So if I'm angry at my boss, I hope my frontal cortex is working and telling me you can't hit your boss right now, right? So, but what we've realized with trauma, when they do PET scans of the brain, people who've been through trauma, those synapses actually disintegrate. And so the amygdala and the frontal cortex aren't communicating anymore. And so you're always in this constant state of arousal in amygdala and feelings. And, if you were, assaulted or robbed or something in a dark alley, when you're there, it's all going to come back. So EMDR was created in the late 80s by Dr. Francine Shapiro, working actually with veterans. That's where we first understood that PTSD diagnosis. And she realized that if she moved her eyes back and forth and thought about a traumatic event, I'm not recommending you guys do this at home, it brought her upset level down. So she's a researcher. She went out there. So what does EMDR do? They probably wish they wouldn't have named it eye movement, because what we've realized, it's a set protocol, which is also kind of cool. You don't even need the relationship with the therapist. Like, you don't talk, like, there's a set protocol. You go in and first you work on, they're not going to throw you right into your trauma. You're going to really work on what we call resiliency skills and, building up confidence and safe place and comfort spot and all that stuff. And then what you do is you target some of your traumas, see where your brain takes you with the therapist. Either you're moving your eyes, you're tapping, or they're doing ears. And it literally gets it filed. It brings the upset level down. And then you install, what do you want to believe when you think about this memory? And then you strengthen that. And then the coolest thing is when they do the PET scans after EMDR, the synapses recreate.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
that's awesome.
There might be some EMDR therapists who said Lora totally botched that, but that is that's EMDR.
Like
so
it.
You can learn more at emdr.com. So I would recommend that. Another thing, back to Shay's question, how do I start doing this feelings work? It's hard. You have to start with a vocabulary. So I often recommend an app that was actually introduced to me by a patient this year called the How We Feel app. So I think it was created by Yale, if I'm remembering correctly. And so you just check in and it takes you through all these words, and you can check in twice a day, and then you can watch a little video on it. I think naming them and being in community and talking about them with your safe people once you have a name for them. I think a big one that I work on with my patients, and I've been talking a lot about lately, is self-compassion. How do I show up to my feelings with self-compassion? How do I show up to my thoughts with self-compassion? Because what I learned is I can get my patients to feel their feelings, but then they judge them.
Yes, exactly.
I shouldn't be feeling that way. Well, other people have it worse. But here's the thing, that's another way. So emotional eating was about stuffing and numbing and putting them down. Judging your feelings and minimizing them is another way to stuff and numb. And we have to learn to go through them. And what I tell my patients is, it's like a wave. Our feelings will go up, but you won't stay stuck there. I promise you, you'll come down. And Shay, you gave a beautiful example. You had relationships in your life that it wasn't safe for you to feel your feelings. And so the wound happened in relationship, but what's so beautiful is the healing can happen in relationship. And so when you have the courage to try that again with safe people like Rob and Murph, and it goes well, and you feel heard and seen and validated and understood, you're giving your body a new script, if you will, oh, and then the healing happens. And that's why I love my work.
Yeah, it's creating new patterns, and it's scary and risky to try it out when it hasn't gone great before, when there's been other experiences of I've cried and people have said, "Oh, that you're too much," or whatever it is, but it's for me it's been so worth the risk because that's what's given me new connections with people where now I cry all the time. Like it's cool, but it takes time to build those new patterns.
Mhm.
So you said the How We Feel app is one of the apps that you use,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of people in the chat who are mentioning that, they grew up um, being taught not to share their feelings, and they do find it very difficult to connect with their feelings and their emotions. So definitely How We Feel app is a good way to possibly get started with that. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's something you'd suggest.
Another book I often recommend is Dr. Susan Alber's book, 50 Ways to Soothe Yourself Without Food. And then she wrote another book, 50 More Ways to Soothe Yourself Without Food. So I always say, I hate to break it to you, there's at least 100.
Yeah. Yeah, there's ways.
But here's the thing, it will never, any technique I teach you, whether how to show up to yourself with self-compassion or a mindfulness skill or deep breathing, it's never going to compare with, sea salt caramels, ice cream, pizza, chips, because it's not apples to apples. Comfort food is about how do I numb? How do I escape? Where the skills I'm trying to teach is how do I cope through? Numbing and escaping, easier in the moment. Coping through, more effective.
I hope that a lot of the people. So one of the main reasons we like doing our show live is for this exact reason. Our chat is going off
Oh,
like crazy, and there's a lot of people helping each other out and talking through. It's connecting with each other. Um, but yeah, please make sure to be taking notes right now, because there's a lot of really good things going on right now. Laura's mentioning some amazing things, and there's it's good to be able to share all the stuff that you're feeling. But similar to, a lot of people compare things to the gym in terms of our weight loss, right, and eating and working out, right? Like,
mhm.
these are things you have to actually put the effort to doing, right? And so if you recognize that there's a challenge with yourself and your mindset or your emotions or whatever the case might be, it's work to address that, right? It's not just going to, get better. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be something that you need to put effort towards. So prioritize that, right? Just like
Right.
you would prioritize exercise on your weight loss journey, this is so much more important. I spent the first year of my surgery, or sorry, post-op, trying to change my habits and the way that and my perception on things, my relationships with food, my relationships with other people, learning to be grateful for the things that I have, reconnecting with my kids, because that was the main reason I had the surgery. I was there. I was a crappy dad in that I was there, but I was never technically there because I was just sitting in a chair. I couldn't be present with them. I wasn't doing things. And that was what my first year of surgery was. And so when a lot of people ask me, you feel, it always comes across that this whole process has been so easy for you. For me, it's always like, I feel like I did the hard work, or I prioritized the work I needed to early on as much as I could. Right. And so oftentimes that's usually where I try to steer people. If people ask me what's the one thing I should work on, and I always tell them it's up here. It's your mindset. It's the way that you're thinking and perceiving the world and everything else. Get a therapist. It's huge. I had a therapist for the first year I had surgery as well. It's huge.
Yeah. It is huge. And it's interesting you said about going to work it out. So another resource I can recommend to you is Dr. Susan David. And she's really the leading researcher on, are you ready for the word? Emotional agility.
Oh,
Right. So just like we are all familiar with physical agility, right?
Yeah.
And we can do the same work with our emotions. And I wouldn't recommend her book as your first thing with her, because it's kind of like, woo, you know, she's Harvard psychologist. I hope she's Harvard. I hope I didn't quote that. But she teaches at Harvard. There you go. I'd recommend her TED Talk first, which is called The Gift and Power of Emotional Courage. And what I learned from Dr. Susan David, besides she has a beautiful South African accent, and I could listen to her all day long, is she was the first one who said in her TED Talk, there's no such thing as a bad emotion. There's not good feelings and bad feelings. There's not positive feelings and negative feelings. And even as a therapist, I was like, I've been saying that. I've been saying positive and negative. She said there's comfortable and there's uncomfortable. There's pleasant and there's unpleasant. Because our clients already, and even all of us, have a hard time feeling feelings. If we start labeling them negative, nobody's going to want to do that. Right? So even just change in lingo and how we look at them. So, and this is her vibe, you know, her research is we can develop it at any time, emotional agility.
Yeah.
I love that. That's been probably one of the most helpful things in my journey is what you just said with that there aren't positive or negative emotions. They're just uncomfortable or comfortable. And a lot of times that's what I'll say when I'm feeling stuff. It's like, okay, I'm feeling this way and it feels really uncomfortable. And I allow myself the permission to say that as many times as I need to, or I do one-on-one coaching support with people. And so with some of my clients, it's the same thing. It's like, you could say as many times as you want that this sucks and it feels really uncomfortable. And there's a lot of, for me, there's been a lot of empowerment of using that language, because it's like, the emotions I'm feeling doesn't make me a good or a bad person. They're not good or bad, but man, these feel really uncomfortable and I hate that I have to feel them. But the cool thing is the more that I've done it, the less uncomfortable it's become. So I don't know if that's how it is with everybody, but and maybe you can shed light on that, Laura, if you see that with patients. But like, I know for me in my own journey, the more practice I've had of feeling sad or disappointed or grief or uncertain about things or whatever the case may be, it doesn't feel as uncomfortable as it did the first time I was really experiencing those, like right after bariatric surgery. It doesn't feel as scary or new as it once did. And so it's not like it becomes better, but it becomes more comfortable, I guess, or that's how it's been for me. Do you see that with patients at all? Or
I absolutely do. And I don't think I need to explain it any different, Shay. You did it beautifully, right? Because you have more experience, right? You have more practice with it. And you realize like, oh, okay, I can honor my emotions in non-food ways. It's okay. There's some other options out there. And like, I actually feel satisfied. Right. So what do I mean by that? Physical hunger, and this is what your bariatric tool helps you with, right? Physical hunger, you put in the appropriate fuel, food, you're satisfied. That's what I love about bariatric surgery, right? It like stabilizes everything and takes that ghrelin out and, you know, like the whole thing, and you feel physically satisfied. Emotional hunger, right? You fill it with food, it doesn't work. It persists despite eating. So if you're like, oh, I think I want, you know, I thought I want something sweet, so I did that, and yeah, that didn't do it for me. So then I needed something salty, and yeah, that didn't do it for me. So then I put the two together, and it still didn't do it for me. That's probably a warning sign that you're not physically hungry. It's emotional hunger, because if you're truly physically hungry and you give it the appropriate fuel, you're satisfied. When you're emotionally hungry and you give it food, it persists despite eating.
So that lines up with kind of a question that we just got from Shannon McNeil. She said, I still struggle with recognizing hunger and emotional eating. How do I change that? So what sort of verbiage or tool would you use, or, you know, what would you say to yourself, or what is something that we could say to ourselves to kind of combat that, you know?
First of all, it's really hard. I don't know where this patient is at on her journey, but that first year, you may never feel physical hunger, right? Like, and
Mhm.
you do have to eat by the clock, but you do know what it's like to be satisfied. So if it's like a brand new patient and they're telling me they're feeling physical hunger, we know like physiologically that can't be happening, right? So close to the surgery. As you're getting farther out, I always say physical hunger has more physical symptoms, like you may feel an emptiness, like feel like just you're hungry, and you may feel lightheaded, you may have a headache. Sometimes it is several hours. It has been several hours since you've had a meal. So you can look at time, like that's more physical hunger. And really anything, like you are hungry, an apple's going to, an apple, a protein, it's going to do the trick. Emotional hunger happens anytime, right? And this is I think the best pointer I can give someone. Where physical hunger is more physical symptoms, emotional hunger is tied to our senses and our thoughts, right? So
Mhm.
if you hear in your mind things like, I have a taste for something sweet, that sounds really good. That smell, that smells so good. Oh my word, those donuts look so good, right? So when you're hearing thoughts like that, it's most likely a cue that it's emotional hunger.
Nice.
So,
That's really helpful.
Yeah, that
I'm
is
going to be
true.
thinking about that.
Thank you.
right? Because how many of us have had, I mean, you've had a meal and you're satisfied. It was, you built your plate in an appropriate way, and then you're like, oh, I have a taste for something sweet. That's
Yeah.
probably more some habit eating, maybe dessert, childhood memory. You had dessert after you ate, it's emotional hunger.
That's great. We have a couple more questions. I want to make sure that we respect your time. This is a great question. So Jenna asks, what's the best advice you can give to someone trying to find the right therapist?
Yes. So, first of all, keep trying in terms of they're hard to find right now. There's going to be more of us. I'm also married to a therapist. Our poor girls, right? Like totally screwed up. That we're going to be the therapist who messed up our kids' reality show. But you know, get I always get the question, do I have to have a bariatric therapist? And I would say no. I think there's a need. We're a niche and we're growing. But I think the things we talked about, learning to, cognitive behavioral therapy, learning to recognize your thoughts, working on healthy coping skills, general therapy can do that. If it's important for you, I think the first thing is to know if you want a male or a female. So go that way and then meet with them and let them. A good therapist will tell you, I tell my clients, you know what, we can just meet for a few sessions. We may not connect. You're going to know if you do not connect with this person. Okay. Yeah. But what I have found out is sometimes patients tell me they stay with therapists way too long because remember, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Right, exactly.
No, you are going to therapy for you. And I have met therapists where I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. Here's another thing I've heard. All of us therapists have different styles. And sometimes therapists don't give a lot of feedback. I think I have a balance of both. Like if you feel like your therapist is just maybe doing too much active listening, if that can be a thing, and putting everything back on you, and you're like, I just need a little more direction, I need a little more challenge. Again, that's going to be up to you. And maybe you want somebody you'll figure it out. You'll just know. So that's the best way. But I want the one advice I can give you is if you don't connect, you don't connect. And of course your schedule, I always work an evening because I know not everybody can go to therapy during the day. So your schedule, I hope they take your insurance, because therapy can be really expensive. And I think that's it.
I always think of finding a good therapist, it's like dating. And I can't remember if I heard that from somewhere or I've just made it up, but it's like that was really helpful to see that analogy of like, you're not always going to meet the person you're going to marry on that first date, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. And I've also found for myself that it's been helpful to have different therapists with different techniques and different times of my life. And so like for me, I started with a therapist who was a lot more maybe like warm and supportive and mothering almost. And that was really helpful, especially like for my first kind of venture into therapy. And then after, it kind of got to a point where it was like, I love this therapist, but I'm not being pushed kind of in the way that I felt like I needed to be pushed. And so then I ended up seeing another therapist who was like very direct, and like, if I had seen him as my first therapist, I probably would have just been in tears and like, I can't do this. But that's what I needed in that time. And it was really helpful. So that's something I've learned for myself, that having different therapists or coaches in different seasons of my life is also really helpful. You don't have to stay with the same person forever.
100%. All right, guys, we have one last question. I know we're running out of time. Thank you, everyone, for adding all the questions. This is a hot topic. I think we're going to need to do another one, Laura. I think we're going to need to do another episode here.
Yeah.
Is it possible that head hunger comes from the tummy? I feel like my tummy is longing and it feels like it's physical, but I'm only 4 months out VSG. How is this happening after my meal?
This is the last one.
These are the last ones.
And please let me make sure. One of the resources I didn't talk about, of course, was my course and connecting with me. So make sure I can share that a little bit too.
100%.
I'll share it in the chat for everyone.
And I want to, let me just throw out a discount code too. Discount 30 right now to the end of the month. Patients your listeners can get 30% off my headwork course, which, by the way, are all those foundational skills. So squash and stinking thinking, emotional eating, boundaries, support team.
If they message you TWT30, can they get the 30%? Just so it says TWT, just so we know the waiting table.
Oh, you want me to change the code?
Just for us, yeah.
I can do that. I have to do it after the show, though. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. I like
Sweet.
it.
Yeah.
I'll change it.
So use discount code TWT30. Good till the end of
Thank you
October.
so much.
Yeah, just don't go use that right now because it won't work.
No.
I got to get on my platform and make a new code. But back to this very good question. We do know that there's obviously, they say we have a second brain in our gut. But I'm going to leave it with sharing a story that my patient shared with me about feeling feelings as hunger, that it really feels that way. I've worked with this patient a long time, and she's allowed me to share this story. She had a child who was actually born with a condition where their child never experienced hunger. It was a genetic condition, rare condition. And obviously that's an issue. Like, they had to work with, having the child eat and so forth. And then the child was in elementary school and lost a classmate. I think third grade, like a third grader died. Like, how sad. And my client said in the group, I remember she said, that is the first time I ever heard my child say to me, "Mom, I think I'm hungry," was when his friend died. And that's when I really got, and she got, how hard we do feel our feelings often in our stomach. There was no way this child could be experiencing hunger, right? But going through that pain and not being able to put words to it of losing his buddy, I think I'm hungry. So I believe we do feel it here. Going here, pointing to my stomach. But if you're doing what you need to do 4 months out, VSG, and getting the protein and the hydration, most likely it's not physical hunger. You're just feeling emotional hunger in your belly. And that's part of the work I do too. Back to that emotional agility. We feel our emotions with physical sensations, right? We're stressed, our jaw can be tight, our brows furrowed. Maybe we feel it here. So, hope that answered.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Love it.
You brought back to your course and the headwork and all the other information. Where can everyone find you? And can you tell us a bit about your course and the program you're offering?
Yeah. So just head over to loragrabow.com and sign up. You just go to the bottom, sign up for my email list. I promise I won't blow up your inbox. And also I have my course, my Foundations in Headwork for Healthy Weight Loss. It gives you the ball And we're going to use TWT30 to get 30% off through the end of October. Woohoo! The winning table 30.
Ooh, I like it.
Like it. And then, of course, follow me on Instagram at bariatric.therapist. Would love to welcome you in my online community.
This has been amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I don't know if you can see the chat, but
I can't.
No, okay. So everyone is saying how awesome this has been. This has been
now I can see
amazing.
it. I didn't click it over.
Yeah, and the amount of people who have mentioned throughout this that this came at the most opportune time. This is when they needed. And I just feel like it's because we always need it, right? And so thank you so much for being on the show and sharing all your wisdom and your information. Chat, guys, thank you for being so candid and sharing all of your experience. That's amazing. This is why we do it live, because we love to have the community support the community. So amazing. Shay, you want to tell us what's going on next week?
Yes, I'd love to. And those that are just joining, we had a comment say, stay longer. I just got home from work. You guys can go. Well, Laura can come back. And you guys, this video will be already up on YouTube. So after we get done here, just go back to the live. You can start from the beginning and watch it. Or if you've already watched it and you just want to rewatch it, that's probably what I'm going to do. So you'll be able to watch it right away. So next week we have Kim from is it Active Bariatrics?
Active Bariatrics.
Yeah, I just know her as Kim, the cool Kim. So
yes.
Rob, tell us a little bit about her, because I know she's more of your guest next week.
Yeah. So I've been working with Kim after losing over 200 pounds and gaining muscle afterwards as my goal. I've been going on a bulk phase, and I've also been cutting fat at this point in my journey. And Kim has been working on sort of the ins and outs with me in regards to caloric intake, caloric expenditure, macronutrient balance, and she's been very, very helpful with me. So we're going to be highlighting some of the details that we've been going through, especially if you are active and you're doing any endurance training or weightlifting, bodybuilding type things. So if that is part of your journey, then next week is going to be an amazing episode. So yeah. Oh, my daughter's saying goodbye. Good night. She should be in bed already, but she's not. That's my kids, guys. Again, Laura, thank you so much. This was an amazing episode. I think it meant so much to a lot of the people who have joined us, and a lot of the people who have listened in today. So thank you so much. And thank you guys for joining us on the Waiting Table podcast, where we're serving the weight loss community
1 pound at a time.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. This is where we dance out, Laura. So you can, Oh, see, Laura's.
Oh, she's got it.
She would.
Laura, I needed you at the JBYs. Me and Netta needed.
Here.
Next year's gonna be amazing.
We're gonna have, we'll have our little dance crew ready to go. Ooh, how do you do that?
I'm really embarrassing my kids right now.
There you go.
I really embarrassed Murph and Shay, so we're good.
Yeah, even.
Man, the comments keep coming in. Thank you for your wisdom, your education. I need this. Thank you. Oh, I love it.
Yay.
Part 2.
The community is treatment. Community is treatment.
That's it.
Love it.
Have a good night, guys.